So last week we learned about the fact that there's a Rasha, there's a Beinoni, there's a Tzaddik. There's a battle going on within every single one of us. We are a battlefield. And doing battle over us, there's the Nefesh Elokis on one side, there's Nefesh Bahamas on the other side. And they're battling for everything. They both want control over everything. They want control over the Seichel and Midas, the intellect and the emotions, feelings. And they also want control over the Machshava Dibur Maisa, over the, we're going to call it the implementation tools, which is thought, speech, and action. The tzaddik wins both battles. The tzaddik not only wins the battle of Machshava Dibur Maisa, not only the thought, speech, and action of the tzaddik are the way it's supposed to be, but by the tzaddik also, the Nefesh Elokis delivers a knockout blow to the Seichel and Midos of the Nefesh Bahamas. The Rasha loses the battle in both arenas. In other words, obviously he doesn't deliver a knockout blow to the Seichel and Midos of the Nefesh Bahamas, to the essence of the Nefesh Bahamas, but moreover, even in the area of Machshava Dibur Maisa, the Rasha also trips and stumbles in that area. And the Beinoni, in the area of Machshava Dibur Maisa, the Nefesh Elokis claims victory, but in the area of what's going on inside, over there it's a stalemate. It's an absolute stalemate. The Nefesh, the Seichel and Midas of the Nefesh Bahamas are just as powerful as the Seichel and Midas, as they always were. They're not compromised in any which way. And the Nefesh Elokis does not make any inroads in the Seichel and Midas, in the essence of the Nefesh Bahamas. So the question we had, which we left with last week, is if by the Beinoni, if by the person who struggles, both the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamas are at full force, then the question becomes, then you would think it should be 50-50. 50% of the time the person should be doing mitzvahs, and 50% of the time the person should be doing or selfish things, Nefesh Bahamas agenda items. Why is it that if both the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamas are at full force, that the result is that in the area of Machshava Dibur Maisa, the Nefesh Elokis dominates? And the answer to that is based on what we learned in the beginning of last week's shir. Remember, we said that the Nefesh Elokis, where is it based? It's based in the mind. And the Nefesh Bahamas, where is the Nefesh Bahamas? Based in the heart. And there is a rule of human nature, which is that Mayach Shalt Alalev, the mind rules the heart. If the mind, in its full force, with all its muscle, says one thing, so even if a person desires otherwise, and even if a person has temptations and impulses, or whatever it may be, but still, if the mind is resolute in its ways, then the rule is that Mayach Shalt Alalev, the mind rules over the heart. And therefore, what we have over here is that the Nefesh Elokis enjoys a height advantage over the Nefesh Bahamas. The Nefesh Elokis is in the mind. The Nefesh Bahamas is here in the heart. That's where they're based. And it's not only a physical difference, but it's actually a spiritual difference, that the mind is higher than the heart in the human being. In the animal, it's not that way, and that's why the physical orientation, the physical shape of an animal reflects the fact that by the animal, the mind does not rule the heart. In fact, the heart rules the mind by an animal. Its impulses, its instincts rule the mind. The mind doesn't have a objective power. By animal, there's no such thing as it wants one thing, but it intellectually understands otherwise, and therefore it follows its instinct as opposed to its emotions. By an animal, there's no such thing, and that's why by the animal, the heart and the mind are more or less on the same plane. The human being, his or her physical structure reflects the spiritual structure, which is that the mind has the capacity to rule over the heart. And therefore, since the godly soul is an intellectual soul, primarily so. In other words, it expresses itself in emotions, love of Hashem and fear of Hashem, but it primarily is it's primarily an intellectual soul. It's based in the intellect. Therefore, it has the capacity to overpower and to to dominate the nefesh bahamis, which is based in the heart. And that's why, if both the nefesh alakis and the nefesh bahamis are both at full force, and neither has been compromised, and neither has actually made any inroads in the battle against each other, practically speaking, the person will do machshava dibur ma'isa, will follow the nefesh alakis, because the mind will overrule the heart at all times, and when the mind overrules the heart, the mind always has the ability to be victorious. That's number one. Number two, says the Alter Rebbe, and we could do this inside. If you look inside on page Yud Zayin, which is the opposite of page 32. Which line? Actually, let's start a little earlier. On page let's go on page 32, 3 lines from the bottom. So it's talking about the nefesh bahamis, and it says, even though the nefesh bahamis is at full force, rak, however, because it doesn't have sole sovereignty in the city meaning the human being, so it cannot actually implement its taivus, its desires, and bring them from the state of potential to actuality. That is actually the limbs of the body should follow its will. Whether in thought or in speech or in action, mamish. The nefesh mamish doesn't even have the liberty to deeply think into the pleasures of this world, because that's machshava, and the nefesh alakis doesn't allow it to occupy the mind. It's not able to, fully use the mind to be able to contemplate how to fulfill its taivus. Why? Why can't the nefesh bahamis implement its desires? Because the mind controls the heart. This is something which is an innate, inborn quality of the human being. By nature, which comes along with the formation of the human being. This is how a person was created. From birth, every person can, with the willpower in his mind, to hold himself back and to rule over the taivus that are in the heart. And that's in all areas. So therefore, if the heart wants, the emotions want to eat the chocolate cake, but the mind decides, and with the full brunt, the full muscle of the mind, it decides it's not going to eat it, the mind will win that battle. The Alter Rebbe adds another element over here, which is that Shlomo HaMelech says, I've seen there's an advantage to wisdom over foolishness, like the advantage of light over darkness. What does that mean? Shlomo HaMelech was a very smart man, but and he said many, many wise things, as recorded in Kehelas and Mishlei and Shir Hashirim. And part of Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom was that he was able to express his wisdom in ways that are not overtly wise. In other words, you look at them, they seem to be statements which seem to be sometimes simplistic, but there's very, very deep wisdom hidden in them. He couched his wisdom that if you look deeply, the deeper you look into his statements, the more you see the wisdom that's inside them. So here we have a statement. Shlomo HaMelech says, here, the wisest man who ever lived says, I have seen that there's an advantage to wisdom over foolishness, like there's an advantage of light over darkness. Now, is that a chiddush?
It's a normal thing.
Everyone knows
Light dominates.
Everyone knows that light is better than darkness, and everyone knows that wisdom is better than foolishness. You don't need Shlomo HaMelech to tell you that. So what is he informing us? And also, what is this comparison? Why the comparison between wisdom and foolishness and light and darkness? So the Rebbe explains that Shlomo HaMelech is telling us it's not only making a comparison. Light is good and wisdom is good, and darkness is bad and foolishness is bad. Shlomo HaMelech is telling us something deeper. The advantage that light enjoys over darkness is that when you introduce light into a dark room, the darkness disappears. There is no battle, there is no fight. If you introduce, let's say you have a cold room and you turn on a heater, so the cold doesn't run away. It takes time the cold air and the hot air, they battle with each other until finally, if there's enough heat, the heat will win the battle. Or vice versa, if you put an air conditioner in a hot room. If you have a bad odor in a room, so you bring in you'll spray it, right? So the spray doesn't make that the odor runs away. They conflict with each other until one overpowers the other. Light over darkness, it's a unique quality that when there's darkness, you don't have to battle the darkness. As the famous mashal goes, you don't chase away darkness with clubs and with sticks. All you have to do is light a candle, and the darkness is nidche me'elav. It automatically disappears. Shlomo Malach says, I see that the advantage that wisdom means kedusha, over foolishness. Foolishness is a reference to klipa. It has the same qualities. Then when the two battle with each other, so then kedusha enjoys an advantage over klipa, that when it asserts itself, klipa melts away. It disappears. It doesn't even have to engage it in battle. So therefore, in general, there's the idea of Me'ich Shat Alev. So in general, the Nefesh Elokis enjoys the advantage over the Nefesh Bahamis because it's based in the heart, and the Nefesh Bahamis is based in the mind. Because the Nefesh Elokis is based right in the mind, and the Nefesh Bahamis in the heart.
Yeah.
But especially so, the Nefesh Elokis enjoys another advantage by the fact that since it's Kedusha, so that when it asserts itself, the Nefesh Bahamis automatically melts away. So the question then becomes, what's the obvious question? You're always with the obvious questions. If the Nefesh Elokis is in the mind, if the Nefesh Bahamis is in the heart, and we have a rule of Me'ich Shat Alev, then why is it that people do Averis? You would think that the laws of spiritual physics, that might be a contradiction, right? Physics is physical, but the laws that determine the spiritual nature of things, the Nefesh Elokis should always win over the Nefesh Bahamis. The answer to that is, well, if you have
that's the initial condition, but the Nefesh Bahamis, if it develops,
how is it ever allowed to develop? The Nefesh Elokis always enjoys the advantage.
Because you decide, you have Bechira here, and you allow the Nefesh Bahamis to overtake the Nefesh Elokis.
So we have to see what does that
condition.
mean. So let's go back to what we said earlier. So imagine a person who's on a diet.
Yeah.
So there's a piece of chocolate cake in front of him. He wants to eat it, but he doesn't. Why? Because the mind, the willpower, which is in the mind, asserts itself over the desire which is in the heart. But someone who's not on a diet, but should be on a diet, I think we all know people like that. So such a person, the chocolate cake is in front of him. If you ask him, let me ask you a question. Intellectually speaking, should you be eating this cake? What's he going to answer? No. In other words, he knows in his mind he shouldn't be eating it. And nevertheless he eats it. Why? The mind rules the heart. And the proof that the mind rules the heart is that when a person's on a diet, he won't eat the cake, even though he has that desired temptation. So why is it that sometimes the mind wins and sometimes the mind doesn't win? The answer is that the mind has to assert itself, and it has to be, it's not just enough that I know intellectually in the back of my mind, I know that I shouldn't eat the cake. It has to be something which you're focused on. The mind has to exert itself fully, and to do that, it has to be exercised, and it has to be part of the person's thought system and thought patterns, and not just that it's there somewhere in the back of the mind in a latent way. And the same thing is true in the battle between the Nefesh Elokis and the Nefesh Bahamis. Yes, the mind rules over the heart. But for the mind to rule over the heart, in other words, for the Nefesh Elokis to win the battle over the Nefesh Bahamis, the mind needs to be at full power. In other words, the mind needs to really have been...
So the mushal is not so good.
Sorry?
So the mushal is not so good. Because the odd is without a battle, and this is...
It is a good mashal, but we're not. If you go back and listen to the shiurim which we gave on Perek Yud Beis, we discussed this barichas, but now was not. Since we're going to be kitzer, we don't have the time. But it depends how the Nefesh Elokis asserts itself. But it has to assert itself fully. Once it asserts itself fully, and with a bittul, the Nefesh Bahamis taka goes away. But how does it assert itself? How do we get that the mind should truly be filled with thoughts about Hashem and about what's right, and doing what's right, and serving Hashem? And the answer to that is that happens every single day during davening. Davening, as we mentioned last week, is the one time of the day when the Nefesh Halikis gives a tranquilizer shot to the Nefesh Bahamis. It puts it to sleep, and the Nefesh Halikis is allowed to fully express itself in the mind and in the heart. And when a person davens properly, that has an impact on the entire day. Because what you've done is you've tuned up your mind. You've refueled it so that it has the power throughout the day to be able to overpower the Nefesh Bahamis. Without a proper davening in the morning, then what happens is, theoretically your mind can control your heart, but your mind isn't thinking about Hashem right now. How do you get? That's what's accomplished in the morning, and then as Alter Rebbe says, the reshimu. Reshimu means the residue of the davening, the impact of the davening, the afterglow, and the after effect of the davening is what allows the Nefesh Halikis to be able to defeat the Nefesh Bahamis in the battle throughout the entire day.
It's only the morning tefillah? Cannot be mincha and arvit? Why after the morning? Because give you the whole day?
Let me first of all, you need to do it in the morning because all the battles of the Nefesh Halikis and Nefesh Bahamis until mincha comes along.
Comes from the morning on.
So you have to start in the morning. Otherwise, you're giving up on half of your day.
So in the morning we all bed, but later on in mincha.
Okay. But it's important to do it early in the morning. If you didn't do it in the morning, do it by mincha. Now you talk about mincha. I'll get to that in a second, and I'll get to you in a second also. But what we see over here, the davening, people think, I have different mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah to give tzedakah, there's a mitzvah to daven, there's a mitzvah to eat kosher, a mitzvah to learn Torah, there's a mitzvah, all the mitzvahs that we do every single day. But davening is not just another mitzvah. If you don't daven properly, a person who doesn't daven properly, the whole day is messed up. Because then what you did is that the natural height advantage of the Nefesh Halikis over the Nefesh Bahamis, which allows you to win the battle, you compromised it. You don't have it. And every single day anew, you have to wake up in the morning, you have to daven, and reinforce what's the word I'm going to
Put a booster shot.
Yeah, it's a booster. It's like lay claim. The Nefesh Halikis has to lay claim to the mind every single morning anew. It's not enough what you did yesterday or the day before, because if not, then you go through the day, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you know that you're supposed to be doing what's right, but it has to be in the forefront. You have to exert the power of the brain in its full force, and that happens through davening in the morning. Yes.
So I just think that Shabbos is the most important tefillah because that's the tefillah where you're praying in talis and tefillin. So would Shabbos be the most important tefillah? Then again, Mincha is the prayer that Eliyahu Navi answers and everything else.
So this is actually very connected to this week's parsha, right? Because this week's parsha is where we learn about tefillas mincha. Yitzchak, that it says that Rivka was coming back. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basada. That Yitzchak comes out, and Taka the Gemara says in Masechtas Brachas, right? The Gemara says that Lo'ilam hi adam zoy betfilas mincha because afil Eliyahu Navi is leinena ella betfilas mincha even Eliyahu Navi. As it states, it says that when he was on Har Carmel. So it says Vayihi ba'loisa mincha, that when the time for mincha came along, that's when Eliyahu Navi.
All the Nevi'im was there.
Right, that's when he built his mizbeach. They did it in the morning, and when he davened to Hashem, and he says Aneni, Hashem Aneni, so they answered only with tefillas mincha. There's definitely something very special about tefillas mincha. And what? Mincha is interesting. The mincha is the only tefillah where there's a machlokes about its time. Machlokes. What is it? That's the idea of plaga mincha. Plaga mincha. There's machlokes in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Chachamim say the time of mincha is until nighttime. Nighttime is shkia or tiskachavim. Okay, that's machlokes in the later halachic authorities. But it goes until the nighttime. And Rabbi Yehuda says that the time of mincha is until plaga mincha, which is an hour and a quarter before nighttime. If you're following the Magen Avram, so then that's an hour and a quarter before Tzisik HaChavim. If you're following the Alter Rebbe and the Vilna Gaon, that's an hour and a half before Shkia. But either way, Rabbi Yehuda holds an hour and a quarter beforehand. Now, we know, but Derech Klal, this Machlekes in the Mishnah, the halacha follows one or the other. But in this case, the Gemara says, the Avid Kamar Avid, the Avid Kamar Avid. You could do whatever you want. And that's how it's passed in the Shulchan Aruch also. It's a strange thing. We don't have this usually. That unresolved Machlekes, and everyone can decide to do as they wish. Only thing is you have to be consistent. That's the only thing. The only caveat is you can't say today I'm following Rabbi Yehuda and Malach Achamim. But you're supposed to do it either consistently in Plaga Mincha or consistently, and if you daven Mincha before Plaga Mincha, and if you do it consistently, then you can daven Ma'ariv after Plaga Mincha. Shabbos is the exception. Shabbos is, even if you normally don't do early, you can do it early, but generally it's supposed to be consistent. But it's an interesting thing that everything we know, every halacha in Torah, there's a pnimius. What's the pnimius of this? So what is the reason for the machlekes in the Bihud and Chachamim? So Chachamim hold that Tfilas Mincha is Keneged Talmid Shel Ben Arba'in, that it was established to correspond to the Talmid, the carbon that was brought, the carbon Talmid that was brought in the afternoon. And since the carbon Talmid in the afternoon technically was able to be brought until nighttime, so therefore Tfilas Mincha is till nighttime. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that Tfilas Mincha is connected to the Keteiros, corresponds to the Keteiros. And the Keteiros have to be brought earlier, up to an hour and a quarter before nighttime. So Pasuk in Tehillim, we say, Tikoin Tfilasi Keteiros Lefanacha, my tefillah should be like Keteiros, Masas Kapai, right? The gift which I'm handing you, which is the tefillah Minchas Arev, is the mincha which we say before night. So I smach to the fact that mincha is connected to Keteiros.
Mincha Gedola, Mincha Getana, and Plaga Mincha.
Right. Mincha Gedola, Mincha Getana is both within the Shitta of the Chachamim. That's a different. The Mincha Gedola Getana, you have to daven Mincha exactly when
6 hours.
they used to bring the carbon lepoil, or until when they could have brought the carbon lepoil. The Mincha was brought earlier. So that's Mincha Gedola. Those are makbid to do it earlier when they actually bring the carbon tamid. And then Mincha Getana is later, when up until the time when technically, halachically, you're allowed to bring the carbon. Now there was the technical, and then there was actually the way it was done in the Beis HaMikdash. That's a different discussion. So what's the difference between Keteiros and the carbon? The difference between Keteiros and the carbon, one of the differences we see right away, that the carbon was brought on the outside Mizbeach, and the Keteiros was brought on the inside Mizbeach. And Chassidus is explained that the Mizbeach is our heart. We serve the Eibishter with the heart. The Seir says, "Less pulchana derech musa." There is no service like the service of the heart. And the Avoida, which was the Beis HaMikdash, where do we serve Hashem? Now the Mizbeach is the heart. And there's the Pnimius Alev and there's the Chetzenius Alev. There's the internal, inside of the internal heart, and the external heart, which is the inside Mizbeach and the outside Mizbeach. Keteiros is the Pnimius of the heart, is the inside of the heart, and the Karbanis are the outside of the heart. And that's why Keteiros is a deeper connection. Look at the word. What does the word carbon mean?
Yeah, carbon
means to be close. And the word Keteiros is Meloshen, tied together. Mm-hmm. In Aramaic, the word is a knot. Before the Shri passed away, he said, "Bechad ketira is katarna." In one knot, I'm attached to Hashem. So Keteiros symbolizes a deeper closeness to Hashem than his karbanos. Without going into all the details, there's a type of connection which is based on. We spoke about this a while ago. If you remember, we spoke about Ava b'chol levavcha and Ava b'chol nafshecha, two levels of love of Hashem. There's a level of love of Hashem which is more selfish based. I love Hashem because He gives me life and He gives me a parnasa and He gives me everything that I want and everything that I need. That's a carbon. It gets you close to Hashem. And then there's the love, which is the love of Keteiros, a deeper love, which is a love which is symbolized by Mesiras Nefesh. It's not about me at all. Hashem is more important to me than my life, and then my mishpacha, and then my parnasa, and then life, Kirvas Salikim, Toiv Chastacha Mechayim, right? Our relationship with Hashem is more important than anything in this world. And that's a deeper level of service and love of Hashem. And when we daven, sometimes we tap into this one, sometimes we tap into that one. Sometimes we do the carbon davening, sometimes we do the Ketores davening. Obviously, the Ketores davening is a deeper davening. But where is this mostly expressed in Tfilas HaMincha? And Tfilas, where do we see the Mesiras Nefesh of a Yid? That a Yid gives away everything for Hashem. That's in Mincha. Shachris, you wake up and you're fresh. You daven. Ma'ariv at night, it's after work, it's after everything. You daven.
Today, you can lose out a big transaction.
Exactly. Mincha, middle of the day, when you can lose out a big transaction. You have to rip yourself away from... And there, that's the ultimate Ketores. That's the ultimate Mesiras Nefesh. The ultimate Ketores is by Tfilas HaMincha. That's why by Tfilas HaMincha is where this is unresolved. Every tefillah, most tefillahs are, some people do it in a way of Ketores. Most people, however, do them, they daven in a way of a carbon. But Tfilas HaMincha has the greatest potential to be like a Ketores, like Rabbi Yehuda, because it requires such an incredible Mesiras Nefesh. And that's the advantage of Tfilas HaMincha, is that it's the Mesiras Nefesh davening. It takes incredible gevura to daven Mincha properly. And not only say the words, but to focus on the words, which is why Yitzchak was the one who did Mincha, was established Mincha. Yitzchak is like gevura, right? It takes gevura to daven Mincha properly. So the advantage of Mincha is the Mesiras Nefesh of it. And that in there is revealed the ultimate connection between a Yid and Hashem. The advantage of Shacharis, on the other hand, that's the tefillah of Avram. Avram represents what?
Chesed.
Chesed, Ava. If you want to build up your Ava to Hashem and take your time and think about the greatness of Hashem, build up Ava, that's the Shacharis. So I think that your question that you had about there's two Shacharis and Mincha has an incredible advantage, which is why Eliyahu Navi is only answered in Mincha, because that represents the idea of the Ketores and the Mesiras Nefesh. But at the same time, Shacharis is the time when we build up the Ava to Hashem, and we think about the greatness of Hashem, and that's what takes us through the entire day, and the battle which we have with the Nefesh Bahamas. There's actually a word from the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe said on this Gemara in Brachas, La'olam yehi Adam Zohir b'tfilas hamincha. He says, La'olam yehi Adam. A person always has to be a mensch. And what does a mensch mean? A mensch is me'ich shalt al-alev, as explained, right? What does it mean to a mensch and a behema? We have a different terminology. You want to praise someone, you say he's a mensch. In the world, when you want to say, I made a mistake, I'm human. Being a human is a weakness. You want to justify you did something wrong. I'm only human. And by us, mensch is the ultimate compliment that you give someone. Why is that? Because what is the essence of a mensch? The definition of a mensch?
We can make decisions.
Is someone who can make decisions, and Moyach Shata allows someone whose mind has the capacity to control the heart, right? So Le'el mi Adam. The first thing it has to be is you have to be Adam. Moyach Shata Alav. The mind has to control the heart. Zohir. And when does the shine? The word Zohir also like Zohar. When does the shine? When does the mensch shine? B'tfilas hamincha. When you rip yourself away from the middle of the day, from whatever you're doing, you daven mincha, that is when the Adam is Zohir. So lo'olam mi Adam Zohir, b'tfilas hamincha, lo'olam mi Adam, you have to be a mensch. And Zohir, where does the shine? B'tfilas hamincha, when a person davens mincha properly.
What's the Indian of Pitan HaKetoros by Musaf? I have a hard time saying that on Shabbos and Yom Tov. You guys say it every day, right? I say it Shabbos and Yom Tov, but what's the Indian of that? You have to end Kilokenu.
It's a good question. I remember seeing an answer. I don't remember it offhand. It's a practical answer. There's a shaila of when the Ketores was brought or something. Look at the Mefarshei Siddur. It's explained. Yeah.
Can you give some practical tips? Because when I'm in the middle of the day, I'm immersed in work. I wake up after time goes by, and then I say I missed it again. Because I'm concentrating on work, and my boss is yelling at me, and I'm arguing. I have a problem with that.
How's Shacharis?
Oh, it's easy. It's wonderful. I get up, and my eyes are open. I'm alive again. That's easy.
What I'm telling you,
and Mariv is easy too.
What I'm telling you is,
the
answer to Mincha lies in Shacharis.
So where's the connection? I don't see
That means that if you daven Shachris properly, not only say the words, but if you daven Shachris properly,
right,
then you'll daven Mincha also.
Okay.
That's what we're saying over here. That Shachris puts your mind in the right place. And even though you don't walk around the whole day, thinking Shema Yisrael or Hallelujah, right?
Okay.
But as we said, it leaves a very strong impression, afterglow. And when a person davens, and that's why by Chassidim always, Tefillah was such a yesod, Tefillah was such a foundation. Is it because Tefillah is more important than everything? Not necessarily. It's because everything needs Tefillah. With Tefillah, everything goes right. When you daven properly, the whole day goes right. And without Tefillah, the whole day is messed up. So why are you davening the Chassidim? Why are you davening so long? Why are you putting so much emphasis on davening? Is it because davening is more important than everything? No. Everything is important. But the problem is without Tefillah, there's nothing. All that everything which is important requires the davening in order for it to be proper. And that's what Alter Rebbe is saying. The Nefesh Elokis enjoys a natural advantage, an inborn, intrinsic advantage of Nefesh Habahamis. But to exercise that advantage, one needs to daven properly. Because then that exercises the mind, fills the mind with the right thoughts, with the right ideas, and that lasts for an entire day until the next morning again. But still, there's no question. You didn't daven in the morning, do it, daven mincha properly, daven ma'ariv properly, but it definitely is, the morning it sets the tone for the entire day. There's a reason why davening is the first thing in the morning. Even Chassidim, who learned before davening, that's only because they feel that will improve their davening. In other words, davening has to be the first thing because that sets the tone the entire day. Sometimes a person wakes up and says, I'm not ready to daven. I need to learn something in order to make sure that my davening, I need to learn some chassidus, some musar, whatever it may be, in order to make sure that my davening is proper. The Alter Rebbe says in Likutei Torah that davening has to have 3 hachanas, 3 preparations to make it go swimmingly well. It's a mikvah, and learning, he says learning Zohar, it means learning something inspirational, and giving tzedakah. Well, those 3 things, those get the davening and make it that it should be the way it's supposed to be. But davening has to be the first thing in the morning. Anything that's done before then is only just for the purpose of davening. Why is davening the first thing in the morning? Because that's what sets the whole day in the right path.
What they said about Hasidim, Rishonim, before the Tefillah, are you making kavanot and
for 1 hour, right?
Preparation.
Yeah.
Let's see if that works. If I concentrate more in the morning, I follow through in the afternoon.
That's definitely a big part. And then you have to resolve to do it. But what's going to make you keep the resolve? That's the point. What's going to make when you make that resolution? What's going to make that? So you'll do it today, and tomorrow, and the next day. But how about in 4 days from now? What's going to make you keep the resolve? The davening in the morning is going to give you your mind the strength that when the time comes to do it, you'll do it. I mean, obviously, I'm not discussing the practical tips, setting an alarm on your phone or whatever it may be. But good. Okay. So that's Perek Yud Beis. Perek Yud Beis explains what the Beinoni is and why by the Beinoni, the Nefesh Elokis enjoys an advantage over the Nefesh Habahamis, to the point that even though the Nefesh Habahamis remains uncompromised and remains at full force, still the Nefesh Elokis is the only one that has the actual control over the Machshava Dibur Maisa. That's Perek Yud Beis. Perek Yud Gimel was a long Perek. Oh, before we get to Perek Yud Gimel, one more point from Perek Yud Beis. When we say that the Nefesh Elokis controls the thought, speech, and action, it doesn't mean that the Beinoni doesn't have bad thoughts that enter his or her mind. For sure does. Big why? Because the Nefesh Habahamis, remember, has not been compromised in any which way. It's at full force. So what is the Nefesh Habahamis busy doing? A whole day is busy throwing stones and catapults and thoughts into the person's mind and trying to get the person to fall for them, to dwell on these thoughts. But as soon as the Nefesh Elokis intercepts one of these thoughts and realizes, this thought isn't the way it's supposed to be, so it immediately ejects the thought from the mind, and therefore and keeps the mind thinking the way it's supposed to be thinking. Now, that's Perek Yud Beis. Perek Yud Gimel, the Alter Rebbe says that he goes through several different levels of Beinoni, and there can be a very high level of Beinoni. But ultimately, the person who's a struggler, which is what a Beinoni is, that's all of us to a certain extent. We have to realize that we're strugglers. We have to realize that even when we're winning the war in Machshava Dibur Maisa, it doesn't mean that we've put the Nefesh Bahamas out of commission. It doesn't mean that we're safe. It requires constant effort and constant exertion to make sure that I win the battle today, and I'm going to win the battle tomorrow, I'm going to win the battle next time. All too often we fall prey to this mistake that we're victorious in Machshava Dibur Maisa in a certain area for a certain amount of time, and we think we have this one beaten. Example, okay, person makes achlata and decides that he's waking up every day for davening with a minyan. That goes by half a week, and 1 week, and 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, and then he says to himself, you know what? I've beaten the Nefesh Bahamas in this area. What's the next thing that happens? We all know. What's the next thing that happens? The next day he sleeps in, right? Because he's too complacent. Because people can delude themselves in thinking that because my Machshava Dibur Maisa are the way they're supposed to be, so that means that I've beaten the Nefesh Bahamas. Don't think so, says Alter Rebbe. You have to know who you are. You're a struggler. Your Nefesh Bahamas is there. It might be sleeping. It might be right now that you've overpowered it temporarily, but you have to always keep on working hard. Constantly and realize, right, as it says in Pirkei Avos, right? Don't trust yourself. Understand that Nefesh Bahamas is there. Unless you're at Tzaddik, which most of us aren't on that level, unless you're at Tzaddik, understand who you are, and that's very, very important, and never to delude yourself into thinking that you're anything other than that. That's the main point of Perek Yud Gimel. Perek Yud Daled, we finish now with what is the tzaddik, what is the rasha, and what is the beinoni. We know what each one of these things are. Now, in Perek Tes, we had, here's what the battle is, and then depending on how well we're doing in the battle, either a tzaddik, or you're a rasha, or you're a beinoni. What should I strive to be? Certainly not a rasha. So what should I strive to be? Says the Alter Rebbe in the first words in Perek Yud Daled, page 38. V'hine, says the Alter Rebbe, midas ha-beinoni midas kol adam. The way of the beinoni is the way for every single person. V'achareha kol adam yimshech. Every single person should strive to be a beinoni. And why is that? And the Alter Rebbe is going to tell us over here, we just discussed the tzaddik, we discussed the rasha, we discussed the beinoni. Your goal should be to be a beinoni. And why is that? Because you have no excuse not to be a beinoni. What is a beinoni? A beinoni is someone who struggles. A beinoni is someone who the temptations and the desires and the ego and the selfishness and the anger management issues and all the other, the pettiness and the jealousy and all those other character flaws that we have are there full force. But the beinoni says, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to indulge the desires and the temptations. And that every single one of us can do. Every single one of us has the power, as Nancy Reagan said, just say no. The Shabbat says yes, and you say no. And there's no excuse for that. You're a human being, you're a mensch, as mentioned earlier. And the mind controls the heart. And therefore, this is what every single person can and should aspire to be a struggler who wins. You know, and people who suffer from addictions. No, so someone who's alcoholic knows he's never going to be a non-alcoholic. Right? Once alcoholic, always alcoholic. What are you striving to? You're striving.
Less alcohol.
You're striving not to drink alcohol.
The Gemara says
Very simple,
Right.
right? We're all that way. We're all addicts. That's the truth. Every single day. It's harder. What is the definition of an addict? An addict is someone who does things that are unreasonable, that he knows that are harmful, and yet he can't stop himself. Does that describe you? Does that describe you? I mean, it definitely describes me. It describes all of us, right? There is a difference. Someone who's a full-blown addict is someone who those things that he or she can't control are destroying his life in a real way, destroying family, destroying relationships, whatever. And most of us, we're managing in life with our issues. But in essence, and we have to realize we'll always be addicts. In other words, the impulse and the urge to do those things that are completely unreasonable and that are completely self-harming and make no sense, but we'll always have those desires.
Is it possible that it could happen for a lifetime, but not for eternity? Or it can't happen. No illnesses for eternity. The Gemara says that, but an illness, or something like that, could be for a lifetime. You can have those disorders for. And how come so many illnesses, so many disorders are for a lifetime? They're not transitory or anything. There's so many illnesses, right? That once you have it for a lifetime, right?
You're asking about physical illnesses?
Or mental, or either one, physical or mental, Right, that just lasts a lifetime. They don't last for eternity.
I'm not, last I checked, I don't have Nevuah. Hashem hasn't let me know. We're in Galus, there are a lot of questions. But I could tell you that we all have an illness called the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh Bahamas. And that's a lifelong illness. I'm not sure what the difference is between a lifelong and eternity. To me, that's the same thing. And it's not going away. And that's fine. That's fine. It's not our job to get rid of the Nefesh Bahamas. Our job is to keep it under control and not allow it to express itself in machshava dibur ma'aseh. We'll always be alcoholics. We'll always want the alcohol or whatever else is our drug of choice. But the Beinoni is someone who recognizes this struggle, but because of Moyach Sha'at Al-Alev, the mind controls the heart, we have the ability not to do that which the heart says. Now, a tzaddik is something else. A tzaddik is someone who goes well past behavior. The tzaddik is someone who's actually delivered a knockout punch to the Nefesh Bahamas. The tzaddik is completely in control of his or her heart, that doesn't have any bad desires, doesn't have any temptations, doesn't have any, the ego, the anger, the pettiness, all these things we discussed, the tzaddik doesn't have. And that's not within our control. 99% of people don't have the ability to do that. But 100% of people have the ability to control themselves, to win the battle against the Nefesh Bahamas so that it doesn't express itself in machshava dibur ma'aseh. And therefore, that is what a Yid strives for. A Yid strives for is to be a Beinoni. The Alter Rebbe says that being a tzaddik, the Alter Rebbe says, is not really part of this world. He says, the love that a tzaddik experiences for Hashem, this incredibly passionate, overpowering love. When I say overpowering, because it completely overpowers the Nefesh Bahamas. The Alter Rebbe says it's me'ein olam haba. Me'ein olam haba. What do you think we have in Gan Eden? What is Gan Eden? We sit and we bask in Hashem's radiance and in our relationship with Him and our love for Him. There are certain people who are very lucky and they get to experience Gan Eden in this world, and that's tzaddikim.
How is that?
What is Gan Eden? We think that we'd be in Gan Eden if we'd have $1 billion, we'd live in Gan Eden. No, that would make Gehenna much worse. Gehenna down here, right? Gan Eden.
They have trouble with people.
Gan Eden is Avos Hashem. Now, look on page Chaf. Alter Rebbe says.
Which one? Which one?
Right in the top.
What's that?
He says, Ava b'tanugim, the Ava, the pleasurable Ava which the tzaddik experience, l's'anig al Hashem. Take pleasure in Hashem is me'ein al mahaba. V'alzeh amru Razal, regarding this, Chazal said, Eilam chatire b'chayecha, there is a possibility that a person has oilam haba in this world. Ve'ein kol adam zoich l'zeh, not everyone can is zoiche to this, kizeu ke'ein kibul schar. That's like receiving the reward, because that's the reward we see for avodah. A tzaddik is someone who receives his reward in this world. We don't often think of it that way. We think of a tzaddik as a holy person, a special person. We don't realize how lucky the tzaddik is. The tzaddik living in this world is experiencing Olam Haba, that kind of relationship and connection with Hashem. But that's something which is
How do you develop that as opposed to other people?
So that's something which is certain people are created. There are certain very few people created with the potential to become a tzaddik.
Not everybody.
No, most people are not born with that potential. Most people are not born with that potential. And it's a matana from Hashem. It's a gift. It's not something that most people can achieve. It's a gift. It's like being a kohen. You can't earn being a kohen, right? The same thing with being a tzaddik. You can't earn being a tzaddik. It's possible for a person to work very hard their entire life, and he's not a tzaddik. Meaning what? He will Torah mitzvahs 24/7. Will win every single battle. Will be a beinoni, but he has not delivered that knockout punch to the nefesh habahamis in any which way. And that's most people. So every single person has to strive to be a beinoni. And that's our avodah.
You said that Shabbat is mein olam haba.
Sorry?
Shabbat is mein olam haba.
There you go, exactly.
This way, one day a week.
And we've spoken about this many times. You know, we put everything in black and white. There's the tzaddik, there's the rasha, there's the beinoni, there's the part of us that's the tzaddik, there's the part of us that's the rasha, there's the part of us that's the beinoni, right? We've spoken about this in the past. And there's no question about it, that Shabbos is a tzaddik time. In other words, all of us are on a higher level. The struggles are less on Shabbos. We know that there are two names that Klal Yisrael have. There's Yaakov and there's Yisrael. And Yisrael, in general, is referred to as the Ben. B'ni b'choyri Yisrael. Yisrael is the Ben of Hashem. Like a son that has love for the father and loyal to the father. And Yaakov is the Eved. Right? We talk about always Yaakov Avdi. Yaakov is the Eved. The Eved is the person who struggles, not the son, the one who struggles. And Shabbos, we're on the Madriga of Yisrael. We're talking a higher level, Mein Elam Haba. And when it comes to Matzah Shabbos, we have to go back into the work week. And now we're suddenly on the level of Yaakov, so that's why we have to say Matzah Shabbos, Al Tira of the Yaakov. I don't know by the Sfardim, but by Ashkenazim, it's a piyut, right? That Al Tira of the Yaakov, we say the work week is coming and the struggles are coming. The Yaakov, what does the word Yaakov mean? Ekev, which the Yaakov is struggling with Esav, right? Both Yaakov and Yisrael refer to the struggle with Esav. But Yaakov is holding on to the ankle and trying to stop him from going on first. And Yisrael is after Yaakov beat the angel, the Malach of Esav, so then we say, Kisarisa, you won the battle. That's when you're Yisrael. So Shabbos from the Madriga of Yisrael, we're talking Me'en Olam Haba, somewhat like Tzadikim on Shabbos. And during the week we fall back to the level of Yaakov. We have to struggle.
Why we don't have 6 days Shabbos and 1 day?
Because for the same reason why we don't have 99% Tzadikim and 1% the Beinanim. In other words, our avodah is to struggle. And that's why most people can't become tzaddikim. Most of the days are work day, because that's the avodah. Why is that the avodah? Perich of Zayin. We'll get to that. That's, we already learned it, but we'll review it soon. But ultimately, that's the avodah of the average Yid is to struggle, and we can't let that struggle get us down. We have to know who we are and realize that we're not tzaddikim, and that's fine. But realize, when you shoot for too much, you don't get anything. When you shoot, the Gemara says, "Tefasta meruba lo tefasta," right? So if you're shooting, I want to get rid of my temptations, I want to get rid of my desires, I want to get rid of all that stuff, and you're not able to. Why? Because it's not within your capacity to become a tzaddik. And what's going to end up happening is,
you go down.
You go down because you can give up on everything. But if you embrace and recognize who you are and realize that midas habeini, he midas kol adam, v'achadak l'adam yimshech, that every single person has the capacity to win the battle in the area of machshav de b'maisa, and that's what your job is, and that's fine. And based on this, the Alter Rebbe explains, we started Tanya, that it says in the Gemara, in Masechtas Nida, that before a child comes down into this world, mashbiyim, they make him swear to eat tzaddik, v'al tehi rasha. Be it tzaddik, don't be a rasha. So the obvious question is that this is a redundancy. It's a redundancy. If you're a tzaddik, if you're a tzaddik, you're not a rasha. So what does it mean, be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha? So the Rebbe says, but now we understand this. When the Neshama comes down, they say to me, tzaddik, try to be a tzaddik. Problem is that most of us can't be tzaddikim. So therefore comes along the second part of the shua, Alti Rasha, at least don't be a rasha, because that everyone, there's no excuses for it. No, you come up to heaven and say, I didn't make it, I couldn't be a tzaddik. Okay, that's fine. But Alti Rasha, there's no excuse for being a rasha. Why? Because Me'ech Shalta Lev, the mind controls the heart, and if you daven properly, you're able to win the battle in the area of Mashav D'Ramaisa all the time. With this, we've concluded what is the Beinani, and also the idea that the avodah of the Beinani is for every single person. And the avodah of the Beinani is practically in the area of Mashav D'Ramaisa. Do the right thing. How do you do the right thing? You have Me'ech Shalta Alev, and the Alter Rebbe also says at the beginning of Perek Yudalid, you take some time to think, I'm a Yid, and I would even go on Mesiras Nefesh for Hashem. I'm not going to fall for this temptation, I'm going to do the mitzvahs, I'm not going to do the aferos.
Now, if you realize it, that all our life we're struggling, you're already winner.
You what?
You're a winner already. If you realize it, all our life is struggling, we're venom, struggling, so you're winning the battle.
Most people get bogged down by the struggle. And the reason why is because they don't realize that that's the purpose. But we'll be talking about this more in Perek Chav Zayin. In Mirz Hashem, next week we are right now middle of Perek Yudalid. Next week we're going to finish Perek Yudalid, and we're going to find out there's a second answer to the question of why does it say Tehit Tzaddik Valti Rasha, redundancy. Al Rebbe is going to say that even if you don't have the capacity to be a tzaddik, you still always have to try to be a tzaddik. That's the second. The first answer that Alter Rebbe gave was Tehit Tzaddik. You should try to be a tzaddik, but at least Alti Rasha. That's the main thing. And the Alter Rebbe is going to say no. There's more than that, which is that every single person has to try to be a tzaddik, which raises the question, why? Why? If I can't be a tzaddik, why should I even try to be a tzaddik? And that, Mr. Hashem, we'll discuss next week. When we continue next week, we'll do, Mr. Hashem, the second half of Perek Yudalid, and Perek Tezvav, and Perek Tezayin, and Perek Yud Zayin. So we'll do 3.5 next week.